What's up everybody, it's Bobby, and today we're going to be revisiting a camera system that we reviewed a little bit over a year ago here on the channel, and we'll put a link in the description below. So today we're going to be revisiting the Hasselblad X1D. Now we'll talk a little bit about the camera, but as you know, looking online, the camera has been discontinued in some online shops. We know it, we're very well aware of it. And of course, there is rumors of an upgrade coming out in the near future. Hasselblad has not confirmed anything. I don't know anything thus far. But regardless, this review will still be relevant because we'll be talking about new lenses and of course, adapting lenses to the X1D system, which should relatively be the same. So with that, let's get down to it. All right, so before we start talking about the camera and the new lenses, I do want to thank Shriro Imaging here in Singapore. Now, they are the distributors for Hasselblad and Zeiss, and they've been very kind enough to loan me the camera, the lenses we'll be talking about today as well, so I want to thank them very much. Having said that though, this review is not sponsored by them at all. These are our thoughts and our thoughts only. Okay, just to recap on the X1D really quickly. This was a game changer to the consumer market in medium format. When Hasselblad launched this was a 51.4 megapixel medium format sensor. They came in a whole new body design that was much more sleek. It was beautiful. I mean, look at this thing. It is one of the most beautiful cameras still to this date, even 3 years after it launched. It's still one of the best looking cameras out on the market. Phenomenal grip right here, very ergonomic, great display in the back, EVF. I mean, look at this. They wasted no space on this. Everything is maximized to its utmost potential, and it just is a beautiful camera. Anyway, when Hasselblad first launched this system, they've launched with two lenses, the 45mm and the 90mm. Now, those were the lenses that we actually got to test when we did our review a little over a year ago. Now, since then, they released a number of lenses. They had a 30mm, they have a 120 macro, they have a 135mm, they have the 81.9, which everybody's talking about. We don't have that with us today, unfortunately, plus a few of the lenses that we have with us now. Now, the first lens I want to talk about today is the XCD 21mm f4. Now, this is a newer lens to the X1D lineup, and you know, wide angle, everybody wants a good wide angle lens. And Hasselblad has not disappointed in the least with this. Now, equivalent to full frame is about 17mm, so this is an ultra wide angle lens, okay? Aperture is from f4 all the way up to f32, and it's actually a little longer than the standard wide angle lenses we're used to seeing on the market. Now, I'm gonna take the lens hood off just so you can see the length of the lens to the body real quick. Okay, now something very interesting about the 21mm on this is that normally when you see a very ultra wide angle lens, there's sort of this fishbowl, eyeball kind of vibe to the lens where you really can't put a filter on it. Well, Hasselblad has done a tremendous job in their engineering, and you're actually able to put a filter on this. Now, the filter diameter is 77mm, so keep that in mind if you want to do that. And the minimal focusing distance is 32 centimeters with this. So you can really get up close to your subject. And shutter, because this is a leaf shutter system, the shutter can go from 60 minutes all the way over 1/2000th of a second. Okay, so if you really want to do some great astrophotography, super wide angle, this lens has got you covered. Okay, talking about internals of the lens for a moment, 13 elements, 9 groups, 2 aspherical elements inside of it. Now, some lenses in the XCD lineup have aspherical elements, some don't, but the image quality throughout is phenomenal, and this one really, really performs well. So when I took this lens out for testing at Gardens by the Bay, I shot it in a variety of locations, light, dusk, nighttime, and it really, really impressed me. It really did. A little bit of distortion can be corrected, but of course it's an ultra wide angle, so you're gonna get a little bit of that. But I mean, just the sharpness of this lens really, really was impressive, especially in low light. I would definitely say if you're looking for a wide angle lens, X1D, you gotta look at this lens. You're really gonna be happy with it. All right, the next lens we're talking about here is the XCD 65mm f2.8 for the Hasselblad X1D system. Now, this has been a lens I have been waiting for a very long time. There was a slight delay getting it to market, but I'm glad they finally did, because I personally love a good 50mm in terms of focal length lens. This is equivalent to 50mm in full frame. F2.8 in medium format is equivalent to about f2.1, f2.0 in full frame. So this is a relatively fast lens. And I love the size of it on the X1D. I mean, it feels compact, it's lightweight at 727 grams, and it just feels really good in the hand with the X1D. And the image quality, image quality. All these XCD lenses are really good. This one I really enjoyed. And in terms of filter diameter, it is 67 millimeters for its diameter on that. So if you want to get an ND filter or if you want to get a UV filter, 67 is the number you need to remember. Also, it has 10 elements in 6 groups inside of this, and minimal focusing distance is 0.5 meters. And because this has the shutter inside of the lens, you can go from 60 minutes all the way up to 1/2,000th of a second for your shutter. So you are covered in that regards. Overall, I took this out to Little India here in Singapore. I took it around town and I just really enjoyed shooting with this lens. If there's one lens I could only afford on the X1D, it would be the 65 f2.8. All right, we just talked about 2 native lenses for the X1D system, but now let's talk about something fun. Let's talk about adapting lenses, because you can do a lot of that with the X1D system, and Hasselblad internally actually has a number of lenses you can adapt, like the HC and the HCD lenses you can adapt to the system, the X-Pan lenses, and the V-series lenses, which is actually what we have here. We have the Zeiss 80mm f2.8 planar T CFE lens that was designed for the Hasselblad V-series, the 500 series, right? And this is Hasselblad's adapter to the camera right here, so you're able to shoot with this lens. Now, of course, you're using with electronic shutter, as you will with all lenses adapted to this, because in the X1D system, it's a leaf shutter system. That means the shutter is within the lens. Now, there's something different with this lens I do want to highlight. Now, when you look at the Zeiss planar 80mm here, you'll notice that there is a shutter ring. So this is how you adjust the shutter on the 500 series cameras. And then you have the aperture ring and, of course, the focus ring. Now, because you're using the electronic shutter inside this camera, you're not going to use the shutter ring on this lens. You'll only be relying on the focus ring and, of course, the aperture. But let's talk about what's inside. You've got 4 elements, 3 groups on this. You've got aperture from f2.8 to f22. And you have a close focusing distance based on the image plane at 2.5 meters. But what's it like to shoot with this lens? It's a very beautiful image that you get from it, but you have to take into account this is an older lens. So you're not going to get the resolving power that you would get on more modern lenses, because this lens was developed for film, okay? So it's great for portraiture. If you want to take portraiture, you're gonna love the skin, the way that it renders skin, because it's softer. It's got like this dreamlike look to it. Even if you want to shoot plants, if you just want to shoot anything for that matter, you're gonna get a much more interesting look to it. Now, I took it to the Singapore Zoo. I was impressed with what I was getting out of this. Now, of course, you're gonna get some chromatic aberration, and yeah, it's not gonna be as sharp as you'd like it to be, but you're still getting that great Zeiss 3D pop to your images. And that's what it's like to use the Zeiss 80mm f2.8 planar T on the X1D. So now we just talked about the Zeiss planar lens from the 80s to the late 90s. Let's talk about another planar design that to me is one of the most beautiful lenses optically you're going to find on the market. The Zeiss Otus 85mm f1.4 on the X1D. This is camera porn. This truly is. Now, I remember watching Matt Granger's YouTube video where he was testing this lens on the X1D. And I was blown away. And ever since I saw that video, I talked to Shriro Imaging. I said, guys, you're the distributors for Zeiss, the distributors for Hasselblad. Can I test this? And they said one day, and that day is now. So, I love good lenses and good image quality, and this delivers in spades. Let's talk a little bit about it. Now, I have this adapted with the PhotoDiox Pro adapter. This is a Nikon mount. Now, it comes in Nikon mount or Canon mount. I got the Nikon mount because it has the aperture ring at the bottom of the lens, which the Canon mount doesn't have. But you can actually control the aperture through the adapter, which is a great idea. I love that from PhotoDiox. Anyway, when Zeiss created the Otus, they created it for a reason, is to give that medium format look to full frame cameras. As a result, you're getting minimal to zero distortion, minimal to zero chromatic aberration, beautiful micro contrast, sharpness, clarity, beautiful color. You talk about a 3D pop, wow. It's not a small lens, as you can see. This is with the lens hood on, mind you, but they really delivered in spades. Now, the very interesting thing, when you are adapting a full frame lens to a medium format sensor, obviously 35 millimeter versus a medium format sensor is going to be a different size altogether. So you would think that there would be vignetting. There's no vignetting on this, none. It is like this lens was developed for this system. Now, you have to use the electronic shutter on this, so you do have to be aware of course, shooting in artificial light, like I mentioned before, and shooting faster objects because of banding issues. But when you get the shot, the background just melts away. I use a lot of great lenses for a lot of the camera reviews that we do, and the Zeiss Otus line has blown my mind every single time, and especially in the X1D, wow. All right, that wraps up our lens review for the Hasselblad X1D, and I'm really excited for this camera system. Ever since I got my hands on the X1D about a year plus ago to review it, it's been one of my favorite cameras. The design, the build quality, the image quality that comes from it. But what Hasselblad has done with the system, really beefing up the lens lineup, especially with the 21 f4 that we tested here today, the 65 f2.8, the 80 1.9 that everybody's raving about, which we haven't got our hands on yet. Hopefully we will one day. And even just the ability to adapt lenses like what we have here with the Otus 85 1.4 and the Zeiss 80mm f2.8 planar T. I mean, there's so much potential with this system. Who knows what the future is for the X1D? Of course, they're going to make another one that's going to come out sometime. We just don't know when. But really, Hasselblad has done an amazing job. And I got to give this back, but I'm going to shoot a few more photos with this Otus because it's just that good. Anyway, those are our thoughts on the lens review. Leave your comments and suggestions below. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. We love you guys. Thank you so much for your comments and for your support. Follow us on Facebook. Until the next one, guys, take care.